Perfect. And we are live. Good evening, everyone. This is Sam. This is actually my first live in a long, long time. So, welcome everyone in the chat. I've already seen some comments in there. Hi, Eileen. Hi, Jazz. Hi, Music Fever. I'm so happy to see you guys here. And you are in for a treat. As you can see, I'm not alone here. I have two beautiful guests that I'm actually welcoming on the platform today. I have Herman and Dee, and their YouTube channel is called DeeAbroad. So, as you guys know, I'm on YouTube here. YouTube is my happy place, and their YouTube channel is one of my favorites. Like, if I miss a live, that means I'm listening to the replay because them big dropping gems all the time. Doesn't matter what they're talking about. I'm learning something at the end, and I just love the vibe. I love the camaraderie in the chat, and I just love them. So I'm super super happy to have them join us tonight. I'll let them introduce themselves, but so you guys know, we're talking about money, marriage, and moving abroad. So welcome, Ermin and Dee. So, who are you for those who still don't know you out here?
Well, Sam, great, good to see you. Thanks for having us. I am the Herman part of Herman and Dee, and this is the lovely Dee. And we we are adventurers. We Our channel is H&D Abroad. We started about a year and a half ago with the intention of sharing our um, plan to move abroad journey. We have crossed the 50 mark, and two thirds of our children have have moved on out of the house, but we are still working. And we realize that there might be an opportunity to seek better options by moving abroad. Um, and in the process decided that we would try to share that experience so that we could because we were having a problem finding a community, finding couples, black couples in particular, who were sharing their move abroad experience, either because they had already moved or because they were planning to move. We decided to kind of move into that space, that conversation. And we've been luckily to be a part of a movement of couples who have made that same kind of mark in the YouTube content creator world. So we do it in real time. We go live every Saturday, 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern, and we just
Share.
tell all our business.
If you want to know it, we're answering questions. We're sharing our research. We share what we're learning from scouting trips, and really the community aspect of our move abroad process is really like cloud sourcing.
Mhm.
What's available, and people are also sharing tips and things we should be paying attention to, and so that learning community aspect is what's really special about this approach to being transparent. Um, these are the steps that we're taking. These are the decisions we are making. Do we know everything? No. Um, but you don't have to be an expert to share.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the value of integrating social media into our process. So thank you.
You're welcome. And yes, definitely the live on Saturday is usually my go-to. You guys also have live on Monday, I believe. Ermin, you do live on Monday for the men, the black men out there.
Yes, correct.
And also D on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, you also have usually like a live, usually for us, for us black women. So
Yeah.
it's quite interesting. I always learn something, like I said, and I really wanted to have you guys here because, as you know, money and relationships is very important. You guys are, like I say, celebrating 25 years of marriage this year. Mind blowing. Been together for 31 years, and I'm like, wow, it's a milestone in itself. So my first question is, when we talk about money and taking in consideration that money is like the number one reason of divorce today, that's just a fact. How did you guys manage? you know, what does money mean to you, and how did you reconcile that to making sure that that wouldn't be any issue in your relationship, and you being here 25 years of celebrating 25 years of marriage?
I'm going to jump in.
Go for it. Go for it.
Well, let's see. So, what I want to say is we are just like any other couple. Um, I think we took some things for granted very early in our relationship. When I say took them for granted, that we both had financial literacy. We were doing things. I mean, I've shared on our channel my student loan journey. I was doing things, but and he knew that, maybe student loans were a part of my world, but when we were engaged and discussing, marriage, we didn't lean into what are your debts and what do you understand about money, what did you learn from your parents, specifically, like they taught me how to, and your observations of, about how your parents dealt with money.
Mhm.
And then, you know we were social service majors, and so we were entering careers that don't have uh, large salaries
Mhm.
and a tremendous amount of benefits. And we just a lot of what we started with was good intentions,
Uh-huh.
and then you begin to hit the walls of it takes money to run this household. And we had decisions to make along the way. Do we keep things secret?
Mhm.
Do we um, do we see how we deal with money as, I've got my money over here and you have your money over there? Um, Trust
Mhm.
in that honest relationship, and then intentionally setting goals where
Yeah.
you have either on paper, or it's more than just a dream. I'm going to sit down and talk through
Mhm.
so that there is understanding. And the arc of that is not, you start here with literacy and then you kind of get to this self-actualized, if we're going to use the Maslow hierarchy of needs, where we're at the pinnacle of self-actualization of we have no more money issues, 31 years of being together, 25 years married. It's always you develop the muscle for those fundamental skills of money management.
Yeah, the basis, in my opinion, the basis of any relationship is good communication. Good communication and an ongoing conversation. Those are not the same thing. There's a whole lot of people talking who aren't communicating. And there's a whole lot of people saying stuff that they didn't say out loud.
Mhm.
It's two different things. And I think we came to the table with the ideas about money individually that we threw together and not had a together conversation about money. And that it showed up in some bad places. It showed up when we needed money and it was hard times, and then we were trying to recover and didn't know how to walk or talk our way through that.
Yeah.
We just finished a walk, and that walk was a financial conversation, because we've had to learn that has to be an ongoing thing. And it's as Dee said, you don't, recover from that. We're in recovery. we go to the meetings every week.
Yes.
and it's, hi, my name is Herman and I know nothing about money. That's an ongoing thing. And the reality and the honesty of that conversation, at 50, I'm just coming to grips with where I should be doing some things with money and how that should move, and recognition of how far behind I am in putting that in place is a reality check. But I attempt to avoid hiding that fear, hiding that lack, because it doesn't help us accomplish to continue to move forward.
That's because I definitely want to have an opportunity to talk about how money is emotional. There's a lot of legacy thoughts and feelings in your relationship and things that you didn't think that you brought from your family of origin.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't even know you brought.
Right.
And
it can show up, and you can try to ignore it, but it's like anything else. It's going to creep up and threaten not just your financial standing, but can drive a huge wedge, security wedge, trust wedge between couples. But when you can get things laid out, there is, if money can be the catalyst, it can drive you apart, which is what you were saying about the number one reason for divorce. But what we are finding is that tackling this issue of money in marriage has been a huge catalyst of what has brought us closer together.
And so this is great. You guys touch on a few things that I actually want to probably expand on, right? Because so there is actually asked that in the community tab on my channel. Is it joint account? Is it separate account? Is it joint and separate account? Because you have like two movements where people are like, you're married, it's joint. That's how you're going to be making it in waves and advance together. And some people are like, yes, I'm married, but I like to have my own account, and maybe one joint account for, let's say, the common expenses, but I like to have my personal account as well. So what is it with HND? So that everybody knows, then they can do the same.
Well, it's interesting that you
Your computer is talking.
Uh-oh.
Hold on one second. We were trying to figure out why there was an extra voice in the room.
Hold on. Yeah.
I'll answer while she's checking.
Sounds good. And for those in the comments, this is not only me and Hermine and Dee. Definitely do share also. For those who are in a relationship, right? Whether it is joint bank account for you guys or like is it separate bank accounts, do let us know in the chat as well. Yes, go ahead, Hermine.
You can plug it from there. So we started off. We started off with. Hold on a second here.
Yeah, it's cool.
The computer's having a whole conversation by itself. We started out with some separate accounts, and that was just because they existed that way, and it was actually quite some time before we moved into the joint account. I am, typical. I bring my money home. Here's the money. How much you need? Here's it go. It's all, I have no money to hide. And I think that, as Dee said, when there's some underlying trust issues, and not necessarily just between us, but then how you come to the table with how you view money and how you protect your money, sometimes you don't know that there's a holding back of moving into a joint situation. Joint accounts are a huge trust issue, because you're saying you have to move into it's mine and now it's ours. I heard a young lady say recently, she got into a relationship with a gentleman. She said, my assumption was what's mine is mine and what's his is mine. And he checked her on that real fast, and unfortunately, I think a lot of people come to the table with that. As the man, you come, you work, you put it on the table, and then the missus has a squirrel account on the side that's hers. And I have chosen to always put all mine on the table. Here's all I have. I have had to learn to say, okay, I need this piece for me.
Mhm.
I don't do for me well. It's always been, this is an essential part of the pot. It makes it hard for surprises because then if I want to pull off some money and do something special, I don't have to figure out how to do that without her knowing and without her saying, I'm looking at this line item. Where's this money? And I felt it kept me honest, the joint account process.
Mhm.
But I also recognized that wasn't as common as I would have thought it was. My folks had a joint account.
Yeah.
Now, did they have separate accounts? They had several accounts. Whether any of them individual, I don't know. I didn't ask that question. But they had several accounts that my father placed in several places. Knowing my father, my mother was on all of them. And that was for her future.
Mhm.
And that's a whole other part of the conversation.
Right.
Definitely in marriage is, the future planning aspect. There are things you need to do today. I probably want to say we were newlyweds before 2000.
Mhm.
And our daughter was maybe about 6 months. I had gone back to work and we had been married about a year-ish. And I decided I wanted to buy a computer.
Mhm.
And so my thought was, I look at how much money I make, I look at how much, and I went after work without talking to my husband, negotiated for a computer and brought one home. It was on the way home that I realized, I can do that. Is that the precedent that I want to set in my marriage?
Mm.
And, there's a lot of feminism that says I'm my own person. In marriage, it is a choice, and I choose to partner. Because I'm going to tell you what probably started going through my head is if my husband made back then, that was what, CompUSA?
Mm-hmm.
Back then, the computer was maybe, $700-800. Would I want my partner to make a $700-800 decision without my input?
Mhm.
Or $5,000. We just saw on Instagram or TikTok the guy went and bought a house.
Oh.
And so people are making decisions around money without thoughtfulness. And it was because I cared what you thought.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think what I knew is what you'd say, yeah, we need a computer. But the intention was, as a wife, I need to consider the impact of this decision with my partner and not just what could I do.
And let me interject there because I think it's important that I give a piece of the relational part of that. So I distinctly remember when she came home, there was this air of guiltiness And I was, I mean, that's her style. So immediately I was wondering, okay, what just happened? And she was clearly, I don't know, there was clearly oh, okay, I made this decision, and that aha moment. I I don't think I was upset. That's not
No.
my thing, because I trust her implicitly, especially when it comes to money. I feel to this to today, she's far more fiscally responsible than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to take my examples forward, and not that I'm loose with money or anything like that, but her choices towards making financial choices. And in that instance, that probably only happened 2 times, and that was probably the most expensive. The other time she bought some silverware,
Mm-hmm.
the big box with all the fancy pieces of
Yeah.
silverware.
Can't believe you remember that.
And she came and she was like, I did something today. I mean, for me, I was just kind of like, you've made everything that I know that Dee does is investment minded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's never been, to my knowledge, there's never been, to my knowledge, any frivolous purchases.
Yeah.
And we, as she said, agreed early that we would have a above this price limit kind of thing.
From that instance, we kind of set what can we agree
Yeah,
on.
what's comfortable? What's a point of conversation?
We had that conversation, but it was 6 years until we joined accounts.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And because we didn't think we needed to. I mean, it wasn't until we took the Financial Peace University class
Yeah.
that started the conversation on, like, there's a reason, there's intentionalness about your money and how you deal with your money when you have a joint account.
Yeah. And this is such a great discussion, and I like just sharing here that they do have separate bank account with her husband, but if she had to do it again, she will do join with an additional separate account for personal fund spending. And so I feel like you know definitely, and Dave Ramsey is a huge proponent of you married joint account, right? It's just like
And
there's
when
no
you're not
question.
married, you do not join your money for sure.
Exactly. So I really like that aspect of consider, like, considering that to each its own, for sure. But like, for him, it's like, couples who join their money together that way can actually accomplish more. But it's really interesting to see, I guess, like, the variety of people and what they do, essentially. And on that topic, let me ask you another thing, because I listen to the Ramsey show quite often, and prenup is something that people bring up quite a bit as they're getting ready to be married, and his thing is like, what do you need a prenup for, right? Because uh, you're getting married, so everything's going to be joined. Debt is going to be joined, income is going to be joined, assets are going to be joined. So um, and you can decide not to answer, but I'm curious to know if you guys actually have any prenup in place, if you have considered that at one point, or you just never consider it, actually.
So I will start the answer on that. No, we do not. I did not consider, and I think a lot of times, intentionally or not, I think prenups or lack of prenups are mm, can potentially be a control factor
Mhm.
for men. I don't have let's not have a prenup. Our money is our money, and then it's the person who's controlling the finances. Or we need a prenup because I don't want you in my finances. I earlier on, I didn't own anything. I didn't have anything. When I leave here, if I leave here before here, what's hers is hers. What's mine is hers. Okay. If I were looking at a relationship today at 50, I would probably encourage a prenup. You come to the table with different histories, different backgrounds, different ownerships, and that's after having thought about it and being educated and learning some things. But that's not a because prenup can another again that can be a trust conversation depending on how that's interpreted by different people. And I think that's one of those things you have to make the decision for yourself.
So let's see. So thinking back to when we were in our 20s, you know, college graduates, zero, zero financials. I thought prenuptial agreements were for people that had money. And now that I'm a parent of young people that I understand their earning potential, I understand that that marriage is about love, but marriage is also a legal entity. And you have to consider both sides of that. If you have a partner that doesn't see that and doesn't understand that, after discussion and mediation by someone that is skilled in talking with couples about financials, then it's probably somebody you don't want to join yourself with legally. Marriage is first a legal entity, and I almost want to say, and secondarily about love, because when love goes, you still have the legal requirements around marriage, and it's difficult to to have those conversations, money conversations specifically, but conversations about protecting, excuse me, protecting your future, where it doesn't seem as though you're saying, what I earn is over here. A prenuptial agreement is just that, it's an agreement, where you can acknowledge that without my partner, I would not accomplish, many of the things that I do, but, and they have a right to, whatever it is we agree to together. And but my intellectual property is mine. I mean, Paul McCartney is probably the biggest example for us about marriage is love and marriage is, is a legally binding, entity, and that you must have those conversations, and or not. If you don't, there are huge consequences based on the state that you live in, the country that you live in, and how those assets are divided after the love is gone. And so I agree with Herman. I mean, I'm looking at this also as a 50-year-old woman, that if I lost my spouse and was entering into marriage again, there are assets that I would want to make sure were designated for my children. And that I understand as an adult that I have a responsibility to protect the assets that we acquired together, and that I want to go to my children, because I have seen where those things have not been addressed, and stepchildren, everybody wants it to be divided evenly, but your children feel like this is my mother, or this is my father. So yeah, prenuptial agreements, I think at any age should be discussed. It does not undermine your love for someone. It doesn't mean that, you have, you don't trust them. It just means that I understand that, the complexities that a legally binding relationship bring.
And it also means understanding what the agreement is beyond what you heard about prenuptial agreements or what you've seen in the media about prenuptial agreements. You need to go and figure out, what does this document mean? What does this process mean? And educating yourself in any process takes some of the fear out of knowledge is power, and going and familiarizing yourself. What does this do? How does this help? What are and then you have a conversation that is informed and that you then can make decisions about that you feel are best for the both of you. Again, as 50-year-old with young adult children and potentially grandkids down the road, wanting to protect some legacy for them. I'm not trying to leave them a fortune, but I'm trying to make sure that they have some things, as our parents did for us, that allow at some point, to turn a corner if necessary. And I have seen spouses are first, whether it's your first spouse, your second spouse, or your 10th spouse, the spouse that you're with. And when you depart, that's the state. If you feel that way, that spouse is first and important. But I have seen family situations where family have been cut out and it transferred to people who weren't a part of that process and were never in the home. And when you can say, I've protected this for them for the future, it is an option to do so. Was that coherent?
Yeah, no, definitely. And coming back to the student loan, and I've been loving. I mean, I've loved your serial of sharing, right? The whole student loan repayment, and how emotional that was, and everything. But I remember also at one point you did mention that Herman knew that you had student loan, but probably did not know how much it was. And I'm not sure if it took you a bit of time to tell him how much it was. So Herman was not there when you were sharing that. So I'm curious to know, when he was made aware of, how much it was, what was his reaction, and how did you guys, came up? How did you come up with the plan to actually pay this off? Because I mean, we're talking about a six-figure student loan that you guys paid in the actually during even the pandemic. You were paying, like, you were really hard on that, and like you say, you're part of the 1% of people who were still paying their student loan even when there was, like, they were put on pause. You guys just went ahead and pay and use that opportunity to pay down the debt. But I mean, I'm curious to know, like, if you remember the conversation, and what was the reaction, and how did you guys come up with the plan?
I do not remember, and your brain is better than mine. I do not remember the initial financials of the conversation.
I think it was when we were doing the debt snowball was the first time we took a look at it.
In the whole, well, yeah, because at that point it probably had ballooned. I mean, it was the first time we looked at it in a holistic way. I don't know if it was the first time we ever talked about it, but it definitely was the first time we had really kind of put it on the table. I think personality-wise, I try to take things at face value. If I don't try not to, go spazzed out about whatever, because it doesn't change where we are. But I think we really were trying to be in conversation about the whole picture. I think, that was still years before we put into effect trying to really dig it down. Dee has been going at it for a while. And so she said, here's where I am, here's what I'm required to do. Can I do this, do more? And I've always said, wherever there's space, do where you feel freedom to move forward.
Where I think the conversation happened several times over the years. So as part of the Financial Peace University, our one assignment was to list your debts. And at that time, what we owed on student loans was almost what the total cost of our house was. Um,
And I think
we got a really good deal
right.
on our home because it was a rehab
Okay.
home. And so, I was like, well, we have a low cost home. Our mortgage rate is really low. The Financial Peace University was the first time I started saying it's not normal.
Hmm.
Having a mortgage till you die is not normal. Having a student loan till you die is not normal. And to look at those numbers, comparatively, that my student loan was about or more than our mortgage, takes my breath away, because I was like, I've never seen anybody. I had never paid off anything more than maybe a
Yeah.
$2,000 something, and so I was just like, when you're looking at five figures, you're like, I'll never be able to do that. Um, and then it was just kind of like, well, maybe one day. And I was still in school, and so that loan grew because of time, and because I at different points I still got loans. I remember the decision to not do that anymore was um, was purposeful. We decided together, um, after we had completed, I think it was 8 weeks. I think it was a 6 or 8 week class.
Correct.
Yeah.
We were like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that anymore. That can't be our get out of jail free card, because we were facing some serious financial difficulties. When we got to the point where we started working the debt snowball for financial freedom, for
Yeah.
to be debt free, we had 2 kids in high school and one still in elementary school, and just it the student loan was too big. We had to have some small wins to begin with.
Right.
And so once you start getting momentum and feeling that confidence, and getting your methods of attack together, then we sat down together and said, we just cleared
Right.
you know more than $10,000 in debts.
Yeah.
um, what do you feel about doing the student loans? And I'm saying this intentionally, Sam, that list your debts from smallest to largest. I could see how those were ours together. When we started paying off debts, I was like, we can pay off these debts together, but the student loan debt is mine. And so I have to come up with. And it took a lot of conversations about, we are here together. Our money is our money together. And it took a lot of tears from me, a lot of therapy. We went to therapy together to be able to talk about why I felt that way. I mean, there were childhood things. There was a lot about, I brought this weight into the marriage. It's my responsibility to resolve it. And through love, through intention, through, working through establishing, giving every dollar before we earned it, before we got it in our hands, giving it a name, to be able to say, we've done this together, we can do this together. There was a lot of pride I had to swallow. There was a lot of shame I had to let go of, that I had to name and process. So as Herman has said, it was not a conversation. It was a series of conversations, because when you're going to pay off a debt as large as what we paid off, and when I say I'm talking about over $150,000 is what was in front of us.
In how many years again? How many years?
Did we take to pay it off?
Yeah.
We paid that part off in 13 months. We had planned for 4.5 years, 5 months. We did it in 13 months.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think it's important to say that, Dee is sharing something very important, that she was looking at it as hers. And I probably unintentionally saw it as ours. I'm the man of the house. I'm the husband. Whatever hers is mine. There's that. And I think a part of that's pride, so it's ours. We do. And then also at some point, because some of those loans happened during our marriage, some of them I encouraged.
Yeah.
And so they were in her name, but they were also my debt.
Mm-hmm.
But we had to have that conversation out loud, because again, her name was on it.
Right.
So she saw the debt continuously as an individual, independent process. And when we talked about it, she brought it up. I mean, it hit me hard. I understood, but I had not perceived it that way ever. It was, we got this. And to know that she was carrying that weight was a very big eye opener for me in the exploration of how we viewed finances and what finances and the troubles of finances were doing in our home.
Yeah.
And I was really grateful that she said, "Hey, we're going to have this conversation," because again, there's a lot of assumptions that happen in the day-to-day. We're doing things, we're making things happen. And so, and again, it's not was a conversation. It is a conversation.
It is, yeah.
There's still an ongoing walk through that.
So when you're tackling it together, that means together we are agreeing that the sacrifice is worth it to bring our dreams closer to us.
Yeah.
That money, I almost want to say it like Stephanie Perry says, money is a construct. I don't believe money is real, but money is a construct. But it is almost the leverage of dreams. I mean, I know we're talking about student loans, but I felt that I could not have a debt that large in front of me and still attempt the move abroad process. The debtor is a slave to the lender. I mean, like, you internalize that message when you go through a teaching like we did with Financial Peace University. And so I really felt that it was the debt repayment also came during a time of emotion. Herman had a really big health scare at the beginning, just before the pandemic started, like a week before. And then 4 months later, I lost my dad. And we had paid off those other debts. But if I hadn't had the student loans, I could have had the opportunity to do what my body and my mind needed. And that was to step away from work for a significant amount of time, to heal, to process, to nourish myself. And I felt like that was taken off of the table. And so the beginning of paying off the debt was really, yes, it was strategic. It was, it was something we were doing together, but I was like, I will never have debt stand in the way of what I need for my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so doing that together means that we now have an opening in our timeline for
Mm-hmm.
retirement. We
Mhm.
have an opening for dreams. You know what? And I'm talking about our move abroad dream is for me was a dream that I had since I was about 14 or 15 years old. And you're talking about holding on to a dream, not really understanding how to make your dream happen, seeing a barrier between you and your dream, which is
Mhm.
debt, and not really having, the money know-how to grow, your money, and then say, I will never have this happen to me anymore. Let's lean in. And so leaning in with education, leaning in together to be on the same page emotionally, mentally, um, to connect together and say, we will accomplish this, and then we will reap the benefits of this sacrificial time. Now, I was unwilling. The conversation we just had on the walk before this call, before going live with you, was okay. So to get out the door, we are willing to make sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, let's put it on a timeline. This needs to be paid by this date, so that the earning has a reason. And then when that reason has been fulfilled, then we go off of that
Mhm.
sacrificial timeline. It is not if I, because you're talking about two people who held 7 jobs between them
Wow.
to accomplish that goal. Um,
That's a
and you
disaster in the
should
making.
never
Yeah.
try to do that. I mean, I was like, if I could do this for the next 5 years, and he was just like, what? you know and so there's a time to turn it on and a time to turn it off.
The deadlines, Sam, are important because they give you a goal to set for.
Yeah, that is true.
But as we've tried to share, because we've learned the hard way, balance is important.
Hmm.
Even in setting the goals, it was our goal to be gone this year.
Yeah.
Okay. But in the midst of that goal, some of the realities of life around us, we're making the adjustments to the goal. We're not necessarily kicking the goal line down the road, but we're making some necessary adjustments to it. And because if not, knowing the personalities that we are, we will kill ourselves. Okay. And in January, February of 2020,
Yeah.
we paid off some debts. In March of 2020, I had a health crisis. The week later, we were sick. In January of 2021, we started a 13-month process like I had not just been sick. 2020, 2021. The goal was not to work ourselves to death. We just kind of went, ooh, let's add this. Ooh, this is paying for that. Ooh, we're sticking in that. And then we got to December and realized that we had set the world on fire. The great feeling was, ooh, we accomplished this goal. But I remember telling Dee her skin was gray. Okay. When you're tired to the point where you don't sleep at night, you fall into bed and then you've been in the bed less than an hour and you're awake. The end repercussion on the other side, there's you have to be able to step back and say, I will not let this overtake us.
Mhm.
And the us is the me and the us,
Mhm.
and so in this current setting of where we are taking care of some of our responsibilities, it's okay. Today we celebrating today. We spending $50 and we having a small meal, even though we technically, because in years past, not only did we sacrifice to pay, we also sacrificed any time to be joyful together.
Yeah. Mhm.
That we can't go on that trip because this happened. We can't do that because that happened. We can't fix this because that happened. The kids need this, the kids need that. And we were adding to the anxiety and the pressure, because we didn't give ourselves a pressure valve, a release valve to say, here's a breather in the midst of this. And so there's a balance in that. You have to be purposeful towards it, or it won't get done. Because the down, one of the biggest downsides to debts is there's always something adding on to the back of it.
Yeah.
You know, if you owe your cousin $5, you owe them $5. When you get them $5 back, you pay for it. You owe your credit card $5, you owe $5 this month. Next month you owe $10. The next month you owe $30. The next month you owe $50. It's a different process. You only borrowed $5.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you're looking at it like that, you have to be mindful of pushing forward, but you know, you're not out selling the kids so that you can, you know, pay $5.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, I find it interesting because, especially for the student loan, I feel like some people, especially for that amount, they feel so overwhelmed by the amount. And I've heard that essentially, you know, some people, they just decide not to even pay it because they say the debt gets canceled, I guess, when you die. So they're like, I'm just going to take this to my grave, and that's pretty much it. So why, you know, and you touch on that a little bit, Dee, but like, you know, why, what made you guys decide this needs to go?
Well, let's see. So the pandemic created a unique opportunity that I knew had never happened before. And I knew they were going to make sure it never happened again.
Wow.
And so when one of the things that we learned as part of our class is understanding your financial goals, so that when an opportunity came along, that you knew exactly what you would do. And I'm grateful that we had some momentum, we had some practice. I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to understand and think like that and be on the same page together. But more than anything, it was, let's go. Let's give our our best shot at it. And like Herman said, what I did was I said, okay, if we threw an extra $500 a month at this, how does that change my timeline? And then we said, okay, but if we threw the kitchen sink at this, then we could really see the needle move. And that was before the opportunities during the pandemic. So when mine were federal loans.
Okay.
They first stopped the payment, and then in 2021 they stopped interest and payment. So everything came to a screeching halt. I was like, this is as good as money, having this stop. And I was just like, okay, so if we stack this, largest to small, smallest to largest, let's just see how much we could clear out. And one loan, two loans, three loans, four loans within that subset. And we were just knocking it down. We were knocking it down. So it almost was, I don't want to say a game, but it was almost a challenge to ourselves.
Correct.
It, like they say, it was good while it lasted. We at least were able to move it forward. Yeah. When I started saying we could clear majority of this debt because coming to the 1 year mark, there was talk about it not continuing. And so we were just like, let's just go full in and see what happens. Well, it continued for another year and almost 2 years.
Wow.
The sad thing was, I'd never considered not holding on. And this is there's not a regret paying the student loan back.
Mm-hmm.
The regret was realizing that I could have had some, with more intention, with more guidance, with like some financial educational partners
Mm-hmm.
behind me, I could have sat that money in a high yield savings account. So when you're talking about, I just chucked 6 figures in a high yield savings account for 2.5 years.
Yeah,
Like,
that's funny. That
don't
is
give it
funny.
to them until they were asking for it.
Yeah.
I watched a what is that, MSNBC making it. That's what one of the young girls did, and she was just like, she was a medical professional, and she was just like, okay, so I see that this opportunity, and so that's what she did, was she chucked it all in a savings account until they said it's due, it's definitely coming back online. Her loans were not forgiven, so now I'm going to I'll pay it, wipe it out. But it's earned some for me too. It was a
Exactly.
blessing for me to more than just paying off the debt. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that I think is kind of the core of why we decided to pay the
Yeah.
loan off, but definitely could have done it in a 2.0
Mm-hmm.
with a
Different.
little bit more thought about the reality. Literally, I thought it was only going to be a couple of
For months, yeah.
months.
We were really geeked. We were both working decent jobs. We had some little odds and end things that at the beginning were just odds and end things. Of course, in saying 7 jobs, they grew into several other tasks. But we were like, okay, and then anything they sent to us, we put it back to them. I mean, it was just like, okay, we're paying them with their money. I mean, anything that gave an opportunity that it reduced our need to come out of our pocket, or
Yeah.
it was just like, okay, we can get this done. We were motivated.
We were selling
We
stuff.
we
I mean,
right.
it was
we
all kinds
sold
of things.
we sold 3 cars. I mean, there's the whole bit. I mean, it's just, I mean, everything that was an opportunity to throw at it, we did. Of course, hindsight is 2020, and you kind of go, okay,
Could have done it
could have
better.
done it differently, could have done it, whatever. But as Dee said, I don't regret it being done. You learn. You hate when you learn something on such a high cost.
Yeah.
The amount of money that we paid off, it needed to be done because we wanted to be away from it. I really want, the red, white, and blue stop hovering over my shadow. But we did not know or did not prepare to make it beneficial to us. We thought we were benefiting us by stopping it.
Mm-hmm.
And there were other benefits we could have taken advantage of. Again, you learn, you smile through it, you kind of keep moving.
You shed bitter tears, but it's that.
One good thing, you guys will not have to do it again. And now you can also share your journey with other people out there, so then they don't make, the same mistake. But honestly, congratulations, because to me, I hear that and I'm like, this is commitment. This is like teamwork, and like be like so like, zero in. This is what we making it, it's a lot, like, over $150,000 in 13 months. Wow. It's quite yeah, it can be overwhelming to someone. So I mean, to me, it's just, you guys are like incredible. Like, when you decided to put your head into it, you just made it happen, and then the debt was gone, right? So that's pretty good. And I wanted to touch on that, but it's good because Jazz talked about it. But so she shared that she encouraged her daughters to study in France because of the low cost of education there, but they decided to study in the UK and took on student loans. So I know you guys have 3 kids. All of them are working right now, I believe. I'm not sure the youngest one. I think he's done for college or not yet.
He's a year out.
He's about a
Yeah,
year out.
okay, exactly.
Mhm.
And so I'm curious to know, as you were going through your own journey and learning and going through FPU, and to me, it falls into the category of generational wealth because we don't want to we don't want to have our kids making the same mistake. And so, how did you manage to transfer that knowledge to your kids? Um, I'm just gonna assume right now that none of them has student loans. I'm pretty sure of it.
No.
No. And that was intentional.
Right.
I think my husband did not have student loans. I did. We started talking early when our kids were small about what our commitment to them would be. And it was that we would encourage them to choose a different path for education.
Mhm.
That would include what we understood at the time was just your community college classes, those credits will transfer to a 4-year university. There are a lot of advantages because of the quality of education without that higher cost per credit hour that a lot of 4-year institutions have, that we would give them the opportunity to stay at home.
Okay.
And then I think the important thing and so we started talking to them like when they were in 2nd and 3rd grade. This is what it's Job Corps. This is community college. These are the dangers of different. This is how capitalism takes your money. And so we would point out things like payday loans.
Okay.
What are payday loans and why? These are conversations we were having with our 6, 10, and 13-year-olds. And so they were like, man, I notice in some neighborhoods there are a lot of payday loans, and in other neighborhoods there are not. There's definitely, kids become more observant, and we wanted to normalize these different approaches too, as well as entrepreneurship. So we committed to helping them to not have student loans. That did not mean we were footing the bill ourselves. And I hear a lot of parents say, well, I'll borrow from my 401k to put my kids through college. And I'm like, you can't rob yourself to make a path for your young people.
Right.
Yeah.
The path that we ask them to take is a partnership.
Okay.
So the partnership looked like mom and dad will pay a portion. You will do work study. If you qualify for any federal grants where you don't have a repayment requirement, we want you to look into that, tap into that, and then scholarships.
Yeah.
Okay. And so at a community college, I felt like they were almost throwing money at our kids. I mean, they were good students. I mean, with strong GPAs, but also we were encouraging them to look into fields that were of their interest, but also that's where money was. And so our daughter chose a different path, but she was able to find money to help her through school. So she's a creative artist. So, and then our son went into welding. So he did the dual enrollment program. So he took college classes in high school that's completely paid for through the state.
Yeah.
And then after he graduated, they offered him scholarships because his GPA remained high. So I think we might have paid maybe the first semester, but after that, he was getting money back from all of the money that he was. And then with our youngest, we've said, your
Personal responsibility.
your personal responsibility is to offset 25%, then 50%, then 75%, then 100%. And so I was like, you don't come up with your 25%, then your job, that's where your money needs to go. You need to be ready to pay 25% of your tuition. Skin in the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Skin in the game.
That investment process. And again, you got to understand they're not going to appreciate that now. You're asking them to do more than hang out. But I mean, when I got to college, when we came to orientation, my father said, let's walk over to your department and find you a job. And I had some scholarships. And he was topping it off, and I worked at some point or through some fellowship or grant straight through college.
Wow.
And that was important to me because I can say I invested in that process.
Yeah.
And we wanted to be able to give them that choice and freedom. We knew that we were never going to be able to take out student loans for them. That wasn't going to happen.
No parent plus loan.
Yeah. So it was kind of, hey, this is what the honesty of this is what's available. And when we have more available, we do more in the edges, but that doesn't mean that you aren't responsible for part of this process. Yeah. And that's how, to date, we've been able to keep them out. If they decide to further their education outside of the means that we can provide for them,
we have already taught them how to look at their benefit package.
Correct.
How to look for jobs more than just salary.
Yeah.
Because I'm in HR, they're going to get the HR talk for me about, the loan reimbursement, tuition reimbursement, loan repayment is offered in a lot of industries. So, those are skills. What I recognized is if you can help your young people overcome some of those early hurdles.
That's huge.
That is, I might not be able to give them money, but that is money in the bank because that means you don't owe someone. Now your income can go to your retirement fund. So our daughter works for the government, her little, what do you call that? Thrift savings account statements come in, and I don't know what's in there, but I know she's saving and she says it's growing. And, our son, has a match at work, working in aerospace. So teaching our young people those things. If I had one word of advice for parents with young people, it's talk to them as early as possible. I had a parent ask me help their child get scholarships to cover their tuition in May to go to college in August.
Wow, that's too late.
No, that's really late. Yeah. But what I would encourage is that if you're considering a student loan for education and your young person is going to take out a student loan, have them save $1,000 before they get that first student loan. I don't think that there is a reality point where young people recognize what it's going to take to pay those loans back. And that is because a lot of the student loan game, it is, and I won't say a game, the student loan business is there to earn money. And so now where our student loans, when I was in college, were like 1%, 2%. Now student loan interest rates are as high or higher than mortgage rates.
Wow.
So we're talking people are 6, 7, 9, 6 and 7% is what I know what I, what
This
I
is this
saw.
is so wrong. It sounds so wrong.
And so you're giving a blank check to a 17-year-old to pay
Yeah.
for college.
On top
Meanwhile,
of it,
they cannot consume alcohol until 21, I think, or
right,
something like.
right.
You just like this is kind of like backward thinking.
And that's on top of encouraging them to get credit cards. So they come into the process riddled with debt from several angles. Yeah, and we really wanted them to not have that go. What we told them, once they move out, they're in their own space and they're making their own financial decisions. They make the decisions they make. We do not bail them out. We do believe our parents helped us, and
Tremendous.
it would be, as my father's word, disingenuous to not help them at times
Mhm.
when they need it. But we say to them, certain debts and failures don't have to happen.
Yeah,
Don't walk into that with your eyes open.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Klarna, the you can pay it later is so, I mean, it's a part of the culture.
mhm.
And so, I'm hopeful that the that our children were observant of the tears that we've cried over the years
Mm-hmm.
with struggling
Mhm.
financially.
Yeah.
They were all at home when my husband and I were, getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, um, to start work, when we were out until 11 o'clock at night at work, when I was working, doing consulting on the weekends. They could hear, they could see, they saw what that the intensity of that sacrifice. And our hope is that they say, I don't ever want that to happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I want to do more
Mhm.
to protect the liberty, the freedom that not having tremendous debt can give you the advantage of.
Yeah.
So the move abroad, you know, if you don't have debt, you can take a gap year,
Exactly.
as not just as a student, but you can take a gap year at any point,
Yeah.
because of how you're living your life. It's a philosophy. Sometimes your children learn those lessons. Sometimes they say, I will be the exception. I won't, we got three. I figures one of them that's going to be their story. But, the unfortunate part is that younger and younger,
Mm.
our young people are being exposed to poor financial, uh, not just these opportunities that where they don't understand the ramifications
Love
of,
it. Yeah.
I make this decision today and how that's going to affect it. I
And
can I can tell you
yeah.
selfishly, I'm looking at, please don't get into debt, because what research is saying, those kids come home. They bring their spouses home. They bring their spouses and their children back home.
I
And
was like, no.
if for no other reason why we are looking at, making sure our young people didn't start off with
Mhm.
a debt mindset and helping them to avoid those initial
Yeah.
pitfalls to a good job, it is to make sure that our financial future was also protected in
Exactly.
balance with helping them to, with their early start.
We showed them the Cosby Show, so I can say to them, my name is not Cliff Huxtable. You do not you do not come back here.
Well, you know what? I think you just nailed it, the in terms of really starting to have those conversations. First of all, making money less taboo in our community, and making money conversation between parents and kids an okay topic. I personally never really had a conversation with my parents about money. It was always, we don't have the money. What do you think? So, but I feel like you just mentioned, having those conversations, age appropriate, of course, with your kids early to, start kind of like uh, exposing them right to the reality of it and whatnot. I think it's really the key, because then it's not so much you giving them the money, but them really understanding it and already, making those decisions that are going to be helping them down the road. And to me, that's also part of generational wealth. When we talk about wealth, we're thinking about the dollar figure and the money, but like the knowledge also, it's important, right? Because it's not so much to give you $1 million, because if you don't know what to do with that $1 million, well, that's not generational wealth. But maybe I won't give you $1 million, I'll only give you 10,000. But if you don't have debt and you know how to multiply that money, well, guess what? That's really generational wealth right there. So I really, I totally agree with that. I think you guys, just she said it here. You did an amazing job. Just the fact that they graduated with no student loan, that's huge for you guys in the US, because it's almost like every other person's story. Student loan, student loan, student loans. So it's kind of like a bit of disappointment, right? Because for a lot of people, they have that student loan, but they don't have the job that's going to help them to pay the student loan. It's a whole cycle where they keep you in that
Yes.
cycle, and
Yes.
then you stay in that cycle, and you don't get to leave. You just stuck there. Um, so I want to touch on the move abroad, because now, student loan has been paid. You guys are preparing on your platform, getting ready to move abroad. I did interview Dee last year on my channel, and I was already grilling her on when are you guys leaving, and and just you guys came with the the fact that you'll be moving abroad in 2024. I understand that that may have changed, but and actually I was watching Cortez, uh, uh, one of his latest video, and he was talking about how important, especially when you're in a relationship, to align with your partner,
Mhm.
money wise, and of course, the location before you move abroad, because he has seen so many people coming, like real couples and everything, and the money part will kind of like really, put them apart, or things like that. So, how are you guys preparing as a couple, to actually move abroad? Um, because you're in a certain environment right now. Probably your budget is a certain, you know amount right now, but you're gonna be moving somewhere eventually, outside of the US. And so, what is your budget gonna look like when you get there? Like, how did you have that conversation, and who had to compromise what? Essentially.
I compromise everything. No, no. Um, it has been, from my perspective, it has been from my perspective a continuously evolving process. Um, you start off with dreams, and some of those are reality, and some of them aren't.
Mm,
And not necessarily fantasy as much as you start big, which I think is important. We're going to blow it up, and and just and you have to temper that down and kind of tap into, okay, one of the things we talk about is your reality where you are is the reality of where you're going to be.
mhm.
That's not a statement meant to hinder your growth wherever you are, but whatever you're doing now,
Yeah.
uh, positive or negative, is what you will do down the road wherever you are. If you were fighting as a couple before you got married, you don't stop fighting because you got married. If you're fighting about something in particular before you got married, you don't stop fighting about that particular thing after you get married. At
Mhm.
some point in time in a relationship, wherever you are in the spectrum of a relationship, you have to decide whether or not you're going to be honest enough about dealing with whatever that thing is and go at it and see if there is some level of resolution.
Okay.
So in this process, things that we could not have expected have come up, and things that we didn't think to prepare for have come up. Those 7 jobs working cost us the debt on top of that came out of trying to pay off debt.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we went into that payoff for 13. We talk about the bad side. We went into that with that 13-month payoff. We didn't bank ourselves any cash off of that. We
Yeah.
had potential health problems off of the back of that, and we ended up with a tax debt that essentially we bought the government a car. And again, when you look at it on the other side, you go, oh, if I had known, if I could, and all of that, you can carry that around. That's unnecessary. And the trickiest is to not take those regrets, doubts, fears, and translate them into the future process.
Mm-hmm.
So regularly, we attempt to stay in communication about what's happening today, this week, this month.
Mm-hmm.
There are some practices that we've admitted we need to get back into the habit of. Consistency about, the way we budget, just down to the little things. It's the balance between, okay, yes, we're learning to, as I said earlier, to use these phrases, to pay ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
because without that, there's never any joy.
Yeah.
There's never any win.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, my son was working for a grocer, and he would go to the grocer, get his check on the weekend, and then he would buy himself groceries there. And I was just like, why you just ask them for, employee discount? You're just giving them that money back. And at times it felt like we were giving our money back in the process. So trying to avoid that, we keep the conversation fluid. There are some little decisions and some big decisions. So the budgeting can be both a little and a large choice. What stays, what goes, when does it go? Do we purchase anything new? Do we purchase that here? Do we purchase that later? Are we purchasing things for financial growth benefit opportunities? If we do those things, how do we move those things with us when we leave? There's all those constantly changing things, because unlike a people who have a deadline, our life here is still happening.
Yeah. Exactly.
Life as it is still in the present.
Yeah.
And we would love to be able to pick up a suitcase and say, here's where we're going. We're out of here. Deuces.
That was really the move abroad at my age, and my desire was retirement. I really wanted to retire abroad.
Mm-hmm.
And at our age, that I'm not willing to wait. When we set 2024 and we looked at the numbers, what I realized is what would give me confidence was peace.
Okay.
And so there were still some things that, like we talked about, the tax debts and things like that, that were a part that did not give us enough. We don't feel like we have enough runway to take care of the responsibilities that we have here. I feel like I need to make sure we've got enough set aside.
Yeah.
If something happens this way, with our house, because our son is still here, and y'all, you fight guilt. When you've got a 19-year-old that you're leaving behind. The other part of that is the numbers had to look right for peace in when I leave. I want to come back because it's my choice to come back, and not because I've run out of money. So some of the places that we're looking at if I have a way to make money that is mine, then I have a few more options where I can go in the world. When I don't, then I need to be in places where I can get a job and the cost of living is low. And so we've shared before that we're considering being teaching assistants. That'll bring in some money while we're making some money on the side. And instead of waiting 2 years, we'll be able to leave, but we've got a strategy for covering our current expenses while we're growing the thing on the side that will be able to cover us, and then we can travel as we desire. But the numbers have to make sense. So we are looking at videos where people are sharing what it cost.
Yeah.
No, we will never buy until we are at a caliber where we can have a house in Colombia and a house in Italy and a house in Chiang Mai. You know, those are my dreams. In my reality, I'm saying I'm probably going to be renting, you know, because that makes the most financial sense.
Yeah.
I'm not going to live in the city because the rates are higher. You know, how it's not just where am I going to live, it's how am I going to live, and being able to set a realistic budget because we've been there. We are able to look at the housing listings and see how much rent cost.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to those places and hey, this, you know, when you shop like a local and live like a local, you have access to more of those local responsibilities. And so that I think is helping us. There's the determination to leave. There is the what would I like to have, and then there is I have to bow out of capitalism because there will always be a reason why I need to stay.
Yeah, exactly.
And because as much as I'm like, oh, my job, I'm just like, oh, I have a job, you know, and so those reality conversations are what we have, but we're still setting, hey, what's the least amount we should leave with, and what do we what do we need to have as a bare minimum that gives us security to launch our life abroad. And I feel like we have and are putting those reality pieces together. There's always going to be the motivation to leave out the door, but it's got to make dollars, cents, and cents. You know, it's got to make sense for peace.
So the compromise is in trying to address where we are today, and not so much, I don't think, your way versus my way kind of thing. It's just kind of, okay, can we do this now? Can we do this soon? Can we do this year? And those bring, you know, levels of disappointment because you want it to be now.
Yeah. Or yesterday, right?
That.
Last year, you know, and we are both optimist and realist. You know, we go forward with, we can do this, and then okay, we what's to say? How do you say we check in regularly?
Yeah.
Kind of say, okay, where are we emotionally? Will are we realistically? Where are we financially? Okay, can we, you know, even with some of the little processes, you know, will this interfere with that? Can we make these adjustments? And it is ongoing and ever changing, and
I'm still setting a deadline.
Absolutely.
I'm not getting away from the deadline because I know me. I could kick it down the road a couple of years, and taking the time off that I needed helped me to say, I don't ever want to feel like that in my body again. And he enjoyed seeing the relaxed me. My husband I want to be here with a good quality of life for many years. I want the move abroad process to be a blessing because I'm in good health. I can travel on an 18-hour plane ride without tremendous disability. Like those, you know, that is why we're pulling back on 2 years, 5 years, now is when I feel good in my body. I'm not promised. I'm not promised next year. I'm not promised 5 years from now. And so I think that comes uniquely with being 50.
And the goal setting is good for me. I'm a, what am I dealing with in front of me? Where, you know, kind of deal with it as we come along. Goal setting helps me to focus into a space in a timeline. And it's not that I don't have motivations and objectives, but I can kind of just, I'm trying to figure out where 50 came from. You know, this, I'm still 30.
It just happened, Herman. You just wake up and then 50.
Well, yeah. And I need to stop waking up at just being 50. So it gives me, giving us a deadline. You know, I've learned to not let myself run into it like a brick wall and be damaged by it, or because it's real easy to get to that wall and then realize, oh, there was no door here for me to walk through. Now I've bloodied myself up, and now, you know, I'm hurt. Do I want to continue forward? You know, even though I knocked the wall down, now I'm hurt. You know, I've learned not to, you know, run headlong into stuff.
And disappointment as well.
Yeah. But also say, I'm going to reach that wall before it gets dark. You know, you know, when we were kids, we had to be in the house before the street light came on, and you know, you playing that game of, you know, how deep is the shadow. You know, I want to be able to be in the house before the light comes on.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to shortchange myself and run into the house because I'm afraid the light might come on. You know, so
it's good. And now there's a question for you guys. Are you ready to learn the language of your new home country, like Spanish for South America?
Are we ready to learn it, or have we learned it? I'm always ready to learn it.
I am what I know. What I think all of our trips have taught us is it's going to be easier in country because it's relevant and we're using it. So I'm not as worried about prep before we leave. I think the way we're establishing how we're going to move, where we're not going to be in an expat hub where we lean deeply into our English language and only as a periphery use the local language skills. That we're intentionally setting up our lives so that experiential learning is what reinforces what I'm learning with a tutor, what I'm learning through, you know, the different language learning platforms. It's just going to make more sense, and I will have more confidence because, you know, they will laugh at me. I'm okay with that. You know, if I get it wrong, it's part of the course.
Exactly.
But I can tell you, when we try,
they appreciate.
When we try, it is greatly appreciated because I think it is a sign of respect for the local language. And we want to move in that way around language, around, you know, respect for, you know, cultural practices, you know, and really embracing, not trying to recreate our life in our home country.
I grew up in spaces that were diverse. And I remember as a teenager feeling some kind of way when the immigrating people did not learn English.
Exactly.
It wasn't that I wasn't glad they were proud of their language. I knew that for many of them, they were better English speakers than me, but then they transformed the language. Now, me as an English speaker, I'm having to learn your language. I feel embarrassed when I go into a space and they're having to struggle with my lack of language skills in the space. So my desire to learn that out of respect for their space, just because, where I am. I mean, you know, I'm not going to come in your house and change your furniture just because you let me stay here this week. You know, it's that same kind of courtesy to their homes. So it is important and highly relevant that we make that a priority. We're just realizing that rather than killing ourselves,
Rosetta Stone. I'm practicing. It's telling me I'm saying things right, but
I've had more Spanish classes than you could ever imagine. I had 2 years in high school, a year in college. I recognize words. I recognize the pronunciation. I don't have the communication skills.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm looking forward to the communication skills. So all of that will become relevant for me.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think you guys, you're totally right. And also just for your own learning, right? I think it's good for the brain to be challenged that way. And I'm looking at the time. I'm seeing, it's been an hour and a half, and I'm pretty sure we can go, for another hour. But I really want to be respectful of your time. And for everyone who's listening, I'm pretty sure you guys are already subscribed to the channel. If you're not yet, don't wait. Just go right ahead and subscribe to the channel. But I want you to take, a bit of time as we are nearing the end of this session to share with people, how I know you have been working, you have been offering some, I guess, services or helping people in a certain way. So how can people, I guess, work with you on, which topic? That would be good to know.
Yeah. So we do one-on-one consulting, especially for couples that are navigating the move abroad conversation together. I know in June we'll be hosting our move abroad conversation for couples masterclass. So the best way is to sign up for our newsletter, because we're making those announcements on through our newsletter, but also through on our community page, on our YouTube channel. We're announcing it on Instagram as well. We're DeeAbroad on all of the socials. I think more than anything, we desire for there to be a safe space for people to say, I'm not retired. I'm going to have to work in some way to sustain my move abroad. I might launch with some savings, but I'm going to. And so our community offline is where we're helping people to massage, what could that look like for me? What skills do I have? Who is hiring? I was just in a conversation. We had a training today about the privilege of remote work and how certain levels of employees are allowed to work remote when others are not. And so the prevalence of remote work isn't as wide as it was during the pandemic. And so people are having to make real decisions and needing to see what is possible.
Yeah.
You don't have to come up with that alone. That is why we have our Patreon community is, hey, we're going to be sharing our story, what we're doing, but also for people to collaborate and hear other stories and hear other examples so that, hey, I didn't consider that. Oh, I didn't know that was possible. Oh, you mean I can get a student visa because I can, do just the realm of possibility opens up when you can learn in a community environment, and that's what we offer.
Agreed.
The Herman is consulting with a lot of guys. The move abroad conversation looks different for men, can look different for men and women.
Because we focus on a community style environment, we make these available because we really want the conversations we have with you about how to build your community, and then using that community connection to enhance your desires. I rode with a young lady today and hooked her up with the network because she wants to make some changes in her life, and that that community engagement, we think, seeing Lamar and Angela sit down and say, "Hey, we chose to do this together, and here's what it looked like for us."
Mhm.
Seeing
Aging
aging
grateful.
grateful, even when it was a conversation with Michelle and down in San Miguel with her husband at the time, and the conversation
Mhm.
he had when he moved to Mexico with her for a while. Those little couple conversations spurred our venture into the YouTube channel world, and we've tried to be honest about where we are in the space and time, the hurt, the pain, the fear.
Yeah.
We grown people. I'm all blubbering and crying on the screen. I mean, it's just we're real people,
Mhm.
and so when you connect with us through our consultation, it's about building that honest conversation with you to encourage the space that you're trying to move in.
Yeah.
And I don't mean necessarily moving, but the space you're trying to exist in, the
Mhm.
environment that you're trying to build for yourself.
Mhm.
And
The
that's
easy part is choosing a country,
Yeah.
or choosing a place, or choosing, just saying I'm going to move. It's the all of those steps that happen in between, when you're looking at a sustainable move abroad
Yeah.
for folks that have a few tethers,
Exactly.
like adult parents, like
Mhm.
young adult children,
property.
property,
Yeah.
and needing to have work. So
Exactly.
There's as simple as fear.
and tethers, yeah.
So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, that's who we are. We're H&D Abroad at the YouTube. We're H&D Abroad on Instagram.
Yep.
We're
Yeah.
here.
That's good. So we will be cheering along with you guys, and of course we'll be in your chats as you're doing all of those amazing live sessions. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for honestly giving your time and sharing um, great, like all of those little thing that you went through in your life, and how really it helped you grow as a person, but also as a couple, for celebrating again 25 years, anniversary of marriage this year, and 31 years being together. To me, it's fantastic. And you guys are just going through all of those stages. You guys are getting ready to move abroad, like for a lot of people, a lot of couple, that's like unheard of. Like, what do you mean, right? So it's kind of like great to be following you along, and thank you for sharing, right, the whole process even before moving, because for a lot of YouTubers sometimes it's after they have moved. And so
Mhm.
that whole process of like going through the motions, or okay, I'm going, I'm not going, I need to do this and all of that, we don't see it, but those are real real situation, life situation that actually happen, and that you have to deal with to make your move abroad a successful one, right? So thank you again for sharing, and I'm hoping to have you back at a certain time. I'll give you some time, to of course build up a bit more on your story, but I would love to have you back, because I do believe that there will be a value for the audience here, to see how things have been evolving for you. So I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for really doing this. I really, really, truly appreciate. And of course, everybody in the comments, thank you for your comments here and for participating. And of course, to everybody who's going to be listening to the recording, thank you as well. Don't forget to like the video here, of course. Do remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And also do remember to go and subscribe to the HND Abroad YouTube channel. I beg, I'm telling you, you're not going to regret it, right? Have to pick just one channel to subscribe to today, pick theirs. You will not regret it. 100%.
What she said.
So again, thank you so much, and have a great evening, everyone. And I don't know when will be my next live. I do not know. My life is I don't control my life right now, so I'm just happy that I managed to be here this evening, because I really wanted to make this happen. But you guys stay tuned. I'll let you know for my next video slash live. And in the meantime, like I like to finish all of my videos, keep on building wealth. Bye, everyone.
Bye.